Fun, and we are now officially live with Tahlia O'Connell. And first of all, just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to come on the podcast. And I just want to start off by asking you. We had a little bit of a mess up this morning by getting my times wrong. So I forgot that you are in New South Wales, and I just wanted to ask you how you're holding up.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate the opportunity to take time out of your day. Yeah, lockdown has been hard, not going to lie. Obviously, the area I'm in, we're in the strictest part of the lockdown, so I can't even get to any of my training partners or anything to do any sort of training because they're all out of my area. So it's just me, myself, and I at the moment. And yeah, it's been hard just going from, training constantly every day without, all my team, all my gyms, everything to absolutely nothing. Yeah, it's not been easy, but we're getting it done still.
That's good to hear. Well, I wanted to ask you, because you're in lockdown and all that, what are you doing for training at the moment? Do you doing workouts at home, or are you just taking some much needed rest? What's the situation?
Yeah, so I unfortunately I don't really have a lot of equipment, so it's been a lot of upping my running, which has been hard on the legs, but I'm enjoying it. So a lot of running, a lot of shadow boxing. I just spent some of my money to get a boxing bag because there's only so much shadow boxing you can do before you start losing the plot a little bit. So I've invested in a bag. So I actually only just got that yesterday. So that was a bit of a relief being able to hit something again. But yeah, just a lot of shadow boxing, a lot of running, and just making do with what I have here, really.
Well, that's good to hear. You're making the most of what you can with what you have. That's the best way. That's the best mentality to have it, especially considering this is a very unprecedented time for New South Wales. Now, first thing I wanted to ask you is that I've interviewed quite a few fighters, quite a few athletes on the show before, but none of them have had such a cool fight name such as yours, like HELLRAISER. That really does have a ring to it. I wanted to first question I wanted to ask you was, how did you get that name?
So when I started competing when I was younger, I started competing when I was about 12. Even just then, like win or lose, like at the little comps and stuff, like all my fights were like very full on. Like, and then people would just kind of be like, "Oh man, you gave that girl hell," or "Oh man, that girl went through hell," that sort of thing. "Oh, you raised hell," blah blah blah. And then someone just sort of said, "Oh, you're the HELLRAISER," and then it sort of just stuck from there. I don't even remember who said it, but yeah, people just started saying that, and yeah, it's true though. Like even if I do, I don't get the win, like my fights are all very, very fun, and I will put everything on the line. So there's always a tough fight. It's always a good show, regardless if I win or not. So the HELLRAISER comes out in every fight, and it's stuck since then. So that's how I got that from.
That's awesome. That sounds like. When did you get that name? How old were you when you got that name?
I started competing when I was about 12. So about 12,
Yeah.
13 is when it started coming out. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. You find your name at such a young age as well. Now to start competing as young as 12, that's very, very, it's very, very early. So I wanted to ask, what's your background like then? How did you end up competing at such a young age?
Yeah, so I started with karate when I was 7. Um, Probably like a lot of parents, they just wanted me to learn it for a bit of self-defense. Just, you know, I was in kindy at that time, so yeah, just a bit of self-defense. And my first karate school that I went to, which is Australia's Youth Self-Defense, I've been with that coach since I was 7, and I quickly progressed with that, and I just started falling in love with it. And then he sort of saw the potential from that age, and wanted me to compete earlier actually, but my mum did not want me to. So the deal was, when I got my black belt, I was allowed to start competing, and I got my black belt when I was 12, and mum had to stick to the deal then. So as soon as I turned 12, got my black belt, and then a couple of weeks later I entered into my first comp.
Wow. So you started at 7, got a black belt when you were 12, already before you even became a teenager, you'd already got a black belt in one discipline. Now I wanted to ask you, what style of karate was it that you started?
So it's called Kempo Freestyle Karate. So it's based, it was based in America. So our head of our club, Matt Klein, he was born in America, learnt Kempo Karate, moved out to Australia, brought it here. And then there's a few head instructors that now run our schools. So we don't actually have a permanent gym. We teach at different schools all around New South Wales, all up the Central Coast and everything down here in Western Sydney. So we've got it all over the place. We've got really big schools. But yeah, so it's Kempo Freestyle Karate.
Freestyle karate, interesting. And then later on down the line, you got involved heavily in kickboxing, and that's now become your one of your choice of styles and all that. But I wanted to also ask, when did you make that transition over from karate to kickboxing?
Yeah, so my same karate teacher that I've been with since I was 7, he is also kickboxing, Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu trained, so he's a bit of an all-rounder. So I'm still with him today, but so I competed in karate for about 2 years, and then my coach saw that I was at that next level again. So, and I'd sort of been clearing out that karate division for those 2 years, and he said, like, I think we need to step it up again, because he could tell that I wanted to do it. And same thing again, my mum was like, absolutely not, because with karate, there's no punches directly to the face, but obviously with kickboxing, there is. And mum's like, no, she's not getting punched in the face. So my dad knew that my coach wouldn't ever let me do something that I wasn't ready for. So it took my coach to make a deal with my mum that he would come back and have a fight if I was allowed to fight. So my coach came out of not competing since, I don't know, for ages, and he had a comeback fight just so that I could compete in my first kickboxing comp. So when I was 14, that is when that happened. And yeah.
Wow. I mean, I just wanted to butt in. How old was your coach at the time if he came out of retirement?
How long ago was that? It was probably about 26.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. That's it. That's amazing. That's good on him. Shout out to your coach and all that. And
yeah.
From there, what was the transition like for you? Did you find it difficult at all? Or because obviously when it comes to karate to kickboxing, in karate we got that wide horse stance, and then when you come into kickboxing, you usually have that very uptight, very narrow stance. Like, was it difficult for you to transition between the two styles?
I think one thing with the Kempo Freestyle Karate is, obviously, if you know people like Raymond Daniels, Wonder Boy, that's what that sort of style is. So they do have that quite wide stance, but it can progress quite easily because it's not one strict karate style. The idea of freestyle is it combines a lot of things together. So it combines the kickboxing and Muay Thai with the traditional karate style. So again, with my coach, shout out to Daniel Jansek, that's my coach. He sort of started training me to combine everything together, and it sort of created a unique style for myself. Like, it's not one, you see lots of Muay Thai fighters, it's very traditional Muay Thai, or karate, it's very traditional karate, but mine's sort of a bit of a combination of everything. So the biggest difference for me was that karate events, it's only very short, like 1-rounders, whereas as soon as I went to kickboxing, it was straight into like 3 rounds. So the gas tank was the biggest thing for me. But the actual style wise, I feel like just even from a young age, we sort of created a very unique style that progresses pretty easily into different sort of rule sets.
Wow. Okay. So the sounds as if you really had everything pretty much nailed down. And from the time when you crossed over to kickboxing, how long did you have training in that style before you had your first official fight?
So I was still doing the karate comps here and there, and then it was just, so the kickboxing comps, it wasn't straight jumping into the ring. So I've done the mat sport kickboxing comps. So it was sort of progression again. So it's sort of going from karate, which is not quite full contact, to then the mat sport kickboxing, which is more full contact, but then again, it's not like in the ring fight night, one big fight. It's still, let's just say there might be 5 girls in my division. If you win that fight, you move on to the next one, and then you might have a couple fights in a day. So it was just sort of constant training still, and just when one of those comps came up, like there might be one next month, we'd register for that and then go from there. So it wasn't like, yeah, we were losing and then just stopping, going to one big fight night. So I think doing those comps, the karate and the kickboxing comps, it just, my experience level just jumped so much, because like my division, some days I had like 20 girls in my division, so I could be having 10 fights in one day. So I've lost count of how many fights I've had on the mat sports scene now, because there's hundreds. Like, so I just feel like that experience level, it's just made me adapt so much, because every girl's different and you're just getting so much experience all in the one day.
Wow, 10 fights in one day. I mean,
Yeah.
if I do 6 rounds in BJJ, that's it. That's it for me for the day, really. That's it for a lot of people as well. So how did you do 10, like, how did it go? Like, you do one fight, get a 5-minute rest break, and then go straight into the next one? Was that something like that? Or was it a little more
Pretty much.
structured?
So you'll like, if you win that fight, then the other girls will have their fights, and then it will, like, so then if you lose, you're out, and then the winners, then you move up again, and until there's like the fight for first and second. So it's about like a little 5-minute break in between, and then you go again. So yeah, they weren't always the prettiest fights, because you'd be quite tired, but the experience of just getting those rounds in was, it was just really good.
Yeah. Wow. And I would definitely say that all that experience that you've had has really surely built you up a very impressive resume. One of the articles that you sent me, which was when you competed in the national WAKO, which is WKO, is that World Association of Karate Organization? What does that stand for?
That's the kickboxing organization. Yeah.
Sorry.
So World
My bad,
Association Kickboxing Organization.
Thank you. Thank you for clearing that up. So when you competed in the WAKO Kickboxing Championship, you won bronze in Ireland. What now? I couldn't find, what year was this?
That was in 2016. So it's a crazy story, to be honest. So that was the year that I started competing in kickboxing. So my first kickboxing event after my coach convinced my mum was the state titles, and then I got a silver and a bronze in that, and then that qualified me to compete at nationals a couple months later. So I went to it not really thinking about it too much, because I'd only just started competing in kickboxing, just wanted to compete again, and I actually won gold in one of the divisions. So there's different styles. There's point fighting, there's your kick glide and stuff. So I won gold in the point fighting division, and I walked off the mat. I was happy, and I got handed this letter, and I opened it, and it said, like, congratulations, you've qualified for the Australian team to represent at the World Championships later this year. And I thought, I didn't really believe it. I was like, okay. And we went and talked to the people in charge, and they're like, yeah, you won the division in like the advanced division, so you qualified for the Australian team. And then fast forward a couple months, I'm in Italy training with the Australian kickboxing team, and then traveling to Ireland to compete at my first World Championships as a
Wow.
14-year-old. And again,
Oh,
not really expecting, not really expecting anything at all, to be honest, because like I said, I'd had two kickboxing comps, and I went out and I got a bronze in one of the divisions that Australia, at the whole time we've been going to these comps before me, we'd only had 2 people medal at it. So yeah, it was pretty cool. And that little medal there, that's the bronze that I took away from that. So
wow.
yeah.
That's phenomenal. At such a young age as well. Like you were going through high school at the time. Like, how did you balance all this competing and your school studies?
Yeah, it was hard. But luckily my teachers knew that sport was definitely going to be my path regardless. Because even right through school, even before I started karate, I was doing athletics, and I was excelling at athletics at the same time as I was doing karate. So I've done a lot for a pretty young age. So they were pretty lenient, luckily, with me, and they knew that I would keep on top of my work. Like I'm disciplined with, or everything that I do. So yeah, luckily I just had good teachers around me that, they even helped fundraise for me, because kickboxing isn't government funded. So I had to pay, me and my family had to pay for everything ourselves to get me overseas. So luckily, yeah, my school was great, and they did fundraiser and everything for me to help me get over there. So, and then I just stayed on track as much as I could.
Damn, sounds like you had a really, really good support team around you. Now, what's the situation? I know we're, of course, during a lockdown still right now, but what was the situation before this lockdown and to help you with competing? Were you studying at a university? Were you working a job? Like, what was your current lifestyle like before this lockdown?
So I'm a personal trainer, actually. So
Oh, nice. Me
that's
too.
what I do. Yeah. So mainly the kickboxing, boxing side of stuff. So I work at a gym called Box Class. So we do both the kickboxing and like the general, weight side of stuff as well. But so yeah, it's great for me. Obviously, running my own PT business, it allows me to be really flexible, and I'm able to train full time as well, because I have, I can fit clients around myself as well as, training and everything like that. So that's what I was doing before lockdown. And unfortunately, I was about 10 weeks into a fight camp, and then lockdown hit. So that was pretty unfortunate.
That is definitely unfortunate for sure. So, what's the situation now? Like, did you say you had a fight coming up very soon, or?
Yeah, so we went into lockdown at the start of July, and I was meant to be fighting on the 10th of July. So
Oh,
originally we were meant to come out of lockdown on the 9th of July. So obviously we weren't going to be able to fight anyways. And the 9th of July obviously never happened because we're still in lockdown today. So we don't know when we're going to be able to fight. Obviously, it's way out of whack at the moment. I was really bummed for a bit, to be honest, because it was going to be my first title fight. So I had been in camp for 10 weeks preparing for my first, big title, and that got taken away right before I was meant to get in there. So it was pretty annoying.
man, that sucks. 10 weeks is like a solid amount of time. So a lot of fighters tell me they like to train usually 10 to 12 because it gives them a good couple of months at least. But then the lockdown here it hit definitely all of a sudden, and it's beyond your control as well. So there's not this, but you don't. Did you say you don't have a rescheduled fight because you don't know when you're coming out of lockdown at all?
Yeah, so originally they pushed it back to about early mid-August, but we are still in lockdown, and they're saying we should be coming out of lockdown on the 28th of August, but the cases have been going up every day still. So now they don't even see that happening. So fight shows in New South Wales have pretty much stopped trying to reschedule at the moment, because every time they reschedule, they just extend the lockdown. So it's hard seeing other fight shows go ahead still, but because I'm still an amateur, I can't even get like an exemption to travel for fights. So yeah, it's just stuck here waiting, hoping that we come out of this at the end of August and then we can get going again.
Wow. Oh man, that's definitely rough. I mean, hopefully the government gets it under control to a point where you can at least be able to fight very soon. Like, is the government doing anything to help out right now? Apologies. I'm not paying attention to the news at all lately. Is the government giving you any kind of assistance or compensation?
Yeah, luckily, yeah, we've got a COVID disaster payment that I'm able to access, because again, with the area that I'm in, I can't even in any of my clients either, because they're all in different areas. So all my clients, I can't get to any of them except for, over social media and stuff as well. So luckily, yeah, the government are giving us a COVID disaster payment, but yeah, it's only so much they can do.
Yeah, that is correct. There is only so much you can do, and hopefully that is enough for you to at least try and live off or pay rent. Or is there anything else that you're doing right now to keep yourself busy besides just training at home?
I'm just trying to get as focus on myself as much as possible, I guess, just with all the little areas that maybe I don't have time to do as much as normal, like trying to get into reading a lot more again. Just focusing on my rehab of little injuries and stuff that I've had, that I've sort of been trying to manage as much as possible. I'm only 19, so I'm still living at home. So it's a bit of a packed house. Like mum's working at home. My younger brother's doing school from home. Dad is luckily still able to work, but yeah. So just trying to get through each day, one day at a time at the moment.
That's a good positive mindset to have, based given on the whole situation. Now, you told me about injuries, and I'm glad you kind of brought that up, because that was going to be my next question, to steer away from this whole lockdown bullshit. One of your articles that you sent me, it described that you had overcome a hip impingement. Now, a hip impingement is quite common, especially in fighters, and especially in karate and kickboxing, combat sports as well. I wanted to ask you, like, what was the story behind this injury? Was it something that was small, that was built up over time, something that happened during a fight, and how did you overcome it?
So as I said before, I was also doing athletics. So even when I was about 12, 13, I was still competing at like a state and national level in athletics, as well as competing at like a state and national level for karate and kickboxing. So you can imagine the toll on the body that takes when I was doing pentathlon and heptathlon for athletics. So that's 5, 6, 7 events, the high level, including hurdles, long jump, the whole lot. So it was just a built up over time thing. It just slowly started bothering me, and then it just got really bad really quickly, to the point where my hips were really out of line, pinching, like it was really bad really quickly. So that put me out for about 6 months, because it just threw everything out of whack completely, and it just took a long time to try and get my hips to readjust again. And then that was sort of the point that I decided to give up athletics and just focus on kickboxing, because I knew that kickboxing was what I wanted to do, even though I still love athletics today. Like, I've just been watching athletics for the past 2 weeks at the Olympics, but yeah, it got to the point where I've got an injury list almost as big as my achievements list. So I knew that I had to give something up.
Wow. I mean, oh, at such a young age as well. I mean, you've obviously overcome a lot of adversity. Like, I mean, if you got the time, would you mind listing a few of those injuries that you've at least overcome?
Yeah. So I've broken my hand. That was in a fight. I have currently getting over a shoulder impingement. I have, at about 10 years old, this is my first ever injury, and it was probably one of my biggest ones. I tore my abductor muscle in 3 places, and that was playing netball. So I gave up netball after that. And I've torn my calf. I have had a slight tear in my hamstring. I have hyperextended my bicep, broken toes. There's a lot.
I'm running out of fingers on my hands here. Wow. Holy crap. Like, tore abductor muscle, broken toes. Unbelievable. That's like what how did you tore your abductor muscle?
Yeah, playing netball. It sort of just
Playing netball.
happened. Again, I was only like 10 or 11, so I didn't really know. I just thought it was sore, and I sort of kept playing, and it went undiagnosed for a while. And then I got to the point where I'm like, no, this is really sore. And then we went and got an ultrasound and all the scans done, and they're like, yeah, you've got 3 small tears. And I was like, right. So that put me out, and all I could do was slowly walk for 6 months. So as a 10-year-old being active doing 3 sports to being told you can only walk, it was quite difficult. But yeah, that was probably one of the worst ones besides my hip and my shoulder.
Bloody hell. As well, 10 years old. Goodness gracious me. Like, what do you do now? Do you have like some kind of like rehab or prehab program that you follow? Do you have a coach who's helping you out at all?
Yeah, so my physio, shout out to my physio at Proform, Andy. It's actually a small world. We actually used to train at the same club for athletics, and then only recently connected together through one of the other fighters at my gym. So yeah, Andy, he's just been looking after me so well. We've just gone right back and fixed every little niggle and injury, any little adjustments that we need. So yeah, I've just got a lot of prehab and rehab exercises, and thankfully he's given me heaps of things that I can do while I'm in lockdown, just to strengthen everything, so that when I come out of lockdown, hopefully nothing plays up again, and I can just go straight back into, full training and hopefully a fight camp.
Oh man, that's good to hear. Shout out to you. Shout out to Vizio, man.
Yeah.
Also, so now in that you've got all that rehab and prehab nailed down, like do you do anything for strength and conditioning?
Yeah. So obviously being a PT, I've got like the basic background and that sort of stuff as well. But again, with my physio, he's got a background and that sort of stuff as well. So we're able to program together around, my injuries, what needs strengthening, and then obviously fighters need that sort of different strength and conditioning to just your standard, weights in the gym. So together we can sort of program around that. So like, I'm really lucky that he's got the same sort of knowledge that I do, and we can sit down and program, depending on where I am in the fight camp. And if I'm out of fight camp, we can really focus on the strength and the injury rehab. And then once I'm in that fight camp, specifying what areas need to be worked on and stuff. So yeah.
Wow, that's great. That's good. It seems like again you've got a really good team like now behind you, especially when you've got all those injuries that need to be attended to. And based on what you told me, it sounds like someone really understands exactly what they're doing when it comes to proper programming leading up to the camp. Now, the next thing I wanted to ask you, like, considering that you're in the hurt business, constantly, you know, taking all these like punishments and like they're constantly taking all these hits. Like, what do you do for like recovery? Is there any like techniques that you follow at all?
Yeah, so I see my physio like once a week, just even if I'm not injured, just to like work out the body and stuff as well, just to sort of flush it out. And one of my fighters, one of our fighters from our gym, he has a sponsor with they're called City Cave, and they do like your float tanks, your infrared saunas, everything like that. So having him on the, you know, in my gym has been a big benefit as well. So I'm able to access facilities like that. So I've started using them a lot more. And just, you know, general, you know, active rest days. Like I'll just go for a walk on my rest day, make sure I have a good stretch. You know, flexibility is a big part of it. Obviously, starting with karate, flexibility and the high kicks, you know, a big part of what we do. So